Well, it's such a pleasure to have you on, Dustin. I mean, you are kind of a like-minded podcaster because we also do a rewatch podcast.
Right.
We decided it would be a good idea to focus for one specific show over the course of its 9-season run. We'll see if we regret that at some point. But I like your concept. You actually found a way to like dive into a variety of shows at a much quicker pace. Can you tell us about the concept behind the rewatch recap?
Yeah, sure. So on the rewatch recap, we go through, and I usually choose like the first season of a show at first, because
Mm.
in case somebody hasn't seen it, I don't want to start in the middle of the show, you know? What we do is we take one season of a show that's at least 5 years old. I'd go back further, maybe 20 years, 30 years even. But the first season of a show, we go episode by episode, we recap each one, and we literally say everything that happens, everything that is said, what the characters all do in scene order for the most part. And we kind of just add commentary. It's kind of like that director's commentary we used to have on DVDs all the time,
Yeah.
And you just kind of give like insight and your opinions and, oh my God, I forgot this happened. And oh my, wow, do you know when this type of thing happened? We kind of comment as if the characters are real, I can't believe she did that, that kind of stuff. But we also kind of dive into like the themes of the era and, the way people thought and talked, how we thought and talked. And then we just kind of sidetrack on the stories of like similar situations we might have been in and that kind of stuff. So we kind of make it a discussion, like you're sitting down with friends. And I don't know if you've ever done that. If you've ever watched a show or a movie and you're just kind of like, yeah, and can you believe it? And you kind of like philosophize a little bit, like
Oh yeah.
if it's as if it's real. And I'm sure you do that on your show too. Why would they do that? Why would you put up with Steve Urkel?
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like how could you just let this kid keep coming over? Um, so it's like, so that's what we do. And sometimes we come back with shows, we come back when we can tell they're popular. Obviously, more people are listening to it. So like, yeah, we need to do more of these because people really like it. So, I try to do stuff from different genres. I don't do a lot of drama. I just, drama's boring to me. I
Mm.
mean, oh, let's talk about Law and Order. Like, woohoo. I like fantasy. I like superhero stuff. I like comedy. There is some drama, but it's got to be like a good, like, thought-provoking thing. Like the second show we did was the full series of My So-Called Life. And My So-Called Life was such a groundbreaking show for its era, and it like kind of gave birth to a lot of different types of teen shows that were more realistic. It was like that set the precedent for that kind of show. So you get like Freaks and Geeks and Life as We Know It and several other ones like that. And so, you kind of get those. And I wanted to touch on other things like that, or something that people took a risk on. Like the first show we did was Scream, the TV series.
Yeah.
And that was a big risk because people knew the Scream franchise and they're taking ideas from the Scream franchise and doing something completely different with it with a new mask and, and different backstory. And did it work? Did it not work? And my co-host didn't like it. So she's like, we're not doing season 2. I'm like, come on. I kind of want to at least finish out the story.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I listened to your review of the pilot episode. Yes, your co-host clearly did not like it. You aren't too crazy about the pilot, but it looks like you warmed up to it. And would you say it's on par with the quality of the Scream movie or not quite?
Oh,
there?
no. It's kind of, no, it's not. It's its own beast, it's its own thing. I think it gets better in season 2. I'll give it that. And I've heard the season 3, even though they did this hard reboot where it went back to the original Ghostface mask and they did a whole different, like storyline with new characters. And I never saw it because I kept hearing how bad it was. And I was like, I want to watch it because I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm really good because I like the people that are in it. I know who's in it. I like Kiki Palmer. I like Tyler Posey and a few other people that are in it. And I went, I don't want to watch this because I don't want to hate them for doing this show. And I don't know if you've ever gone like that, if you've ever seen or heard something, you're like, why? I heard it's bad. I don't want to see it because I just don't want to see it be bad. And I feel too much for them and I like them. So yeah, I don't do that to myself.
I mean, we shit talk Family Matters in the later seasons all the time, and we're just on season 2. So yeah, we're right there when when we just
I can't remember how long is that little sister. She's just in season 1 or is it like the first couple seasons?
So season 4.
Yeah.
And then she just disappears. She's retconned out.
Yep.
It's so weird why they
Supposedly,
do that in shows.
supposedly goes up the stairs and never comes back, and then probably took the quality of the show with her because I think as seasons go by, it just kind of still
As days go by.
days go by. That too. But hey, look, I mean, even with the bad episodes, there's still going to be good episodes as we go by. So we're in the good days still. So we're trying to keep a positive light on it. But yeah, it didn't need to go 9 seasons. We know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've seen a lot about it and how they focus on Urkel because he became such a standout character. I'm like, you guys, and then you just nailed that like into everybody's brain. Everybody hated them after a while, and you're like, wait, we can't let go of it now. Like, yeah, you screwed yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to jump ahead on your show.
We've already done it many times. So you're totally fine.
You know,
I'm going to embarrass myself. I've never seen Scream the movie, the original movie. I've never seen.
really? Have you seen any of them?
None of them. You know what, Andrew? You don't even know who James Taylor and Post Malone are, so you shouldn't even be talking.
Okay, those people are not important when it comes to Scream, John. I didn't know this about you. I am personally offended.
Look, okay,
for coming out.
So what am I missing? What makes Scream so iconic?
Okay, so I mean, I know you know all about like they talk about what's your favorite scary movie and stuff, but so I love the writing of Kevin Williamson, and of course everybody learned who Kevin Williamson was because of Scream. Okay,
Sorry, he's the creator of Dawson's Creek for me.
correct.
Which
And that only happened because he did Scream. So
interesting. Yeah.
he had the pilot ready and everything, and they had to change a lot because originally Dawson was going to turn out to be gay, and because it was based on his life, and he came out of the closet, and he wanted it to be about him, but then they decided, the network's like, no, you can't do that to the main character. We can't have that. So that's where they created the gay character Jack, and they went forward that way. So yeah, little crinkle in your brain there for you.
Sure.
Yeah, then he did that, and then he did the Vampire Diaries. He created the Vampire Diaries TV show. He didn't do the originals, the spinoffs or anything. He co-created that with Julie Plec, and they went forward that way. I love the Vampire Diaries. Oh, it's so good. It's a good supernatural soap opera. It's so much fun. It to me is a modern day Dark Shadows. But I don't know if you've ever seen Dark Shadows. You probably haven't, but
I've heard of it, and I know my sister and cousin, they loved Vampire Diaries. So yes, I've heard good things about it.
it's great. It's so much fun. But so Scream. He loved. He got inspired by, of course, some real life events and whatnot, but it was really because he liked scary movies growing up. He always loved Halloween. He always loved Freddy Krueger stuff. Wes Craven, whatnot. And he wrote this whole script where it was about these teenagers being stalked by somebody who's trying to not copycat scary movies, but using them as his catalyst to like kill people or to stalk them and then kill them. And it becomes, and you find out there's more of an underlying story, but there's always that what's your favorite scary movie thing going on. And then the sequel, it goes into like the movie within the movie, because then you have the sequel. Everybody knows the first big death in the first movie is Drew Barrymore. Everybody knows that, right?
Right.
And in the sequel, it is Jada Pinkett, when she was Jada Pinkett. And what is it? Is it Omar Epps in the sequel? Is it the other, like her boyfriend?
Yeah.
Remember? Okay. And so they're like the big opening one. There's always a big opening, like first kill, and it's always like each one has got to top the last one. Or at least they're trying to. The third one didn't do as well, but it was okay. Hers, I think, was my favorite though. Jada Pinkett's. Oh my God, just what happens. Oh, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's like in public where anybody could help her and they just don't. And it's
You already spoiled it by saying Drew Barrymore gets killed in the first one.
this by this point, and the movie is like what 25, almost 27 years old. Like,
Yeah.
John, when you watch it, you're going to know that the kill is coming. You will know it.
yeah. Is it like that?
Is it in the first scene? Or does it just happen like?
Yeah. It's like the first 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's just the way that it happens, though. That's the point. It's not the destination, it's the journey. It's the whole thing, So it's the truth, You're like, oh my God, it's happening. And it's just how it happens. And it's just, wow. So like the second one, it's all about like, they make a movie based off the events of the first one. And then, but there's somebody's now stalking the same girl that was stalked in the first one. And then the third one, it takes place in Hollywood. And there's a whole franchise about what's happened to these kids, and and it just keeps going, and you're like, oh my God. And I didn't like the reboot, the new Scream, the hard reboot they tried to do. hard soft reboot, and they just renamed it Scream, and I was like, I saw it in the theater and went, nah, it wasn't Kevin Williamson.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the third one wasn't written by Kevin Williamson, but he wrote the treatment. He wanted to write the movie, but they didn't give him the time. So he had the whole story planned out and somebody else wrote it from that. So at least I kind of credit him for it. But the hard reboot was like, or the new reboot was not. And I'm like, he was like, I signed off on it. It's okay. I'm like, yeah, but you shouldn't have. I saw every single thing coming. And I knew who was going to get killed, how they were going to get killed, and I figured out who the killers were. That's another thing. It's all about a whodunit at the same time. Who's the killer? Because it does a really good job of making you think it's this person and this person and this person. Because everybody says really creepy things and has like these really kind of shady responses to stuff and what they're doing. You're like, is it them? Is it them? And the other one, I was like, oh, okay. I was so not moved. I didn't jump at all. I felt no intense moments. So yeah, but I would say the first four. I like the fourth one. A lot of people didn't. I did. The first four were all Kevin Williamson written or influenced at least, and those are the best ones, I think.
All right. Now, I guess I'm really curious about how Kevin creatively just did that hard pivot from the supernatural universe with Scream to creating this teen soap Dawson's Creek. Do you know the story of that? Like how the WB network was like, oh yeah, this guy who created Scream is going to do fine with this completely different kind of universe.
Well, I mean, it's just about getting your foot in the door, really, right? So, I mean, this guy's a successful writer. So, and people are going to know his name from Scream. Let's just let him do stuff. And he's like, I've got this teen drama I want to do, and it's based on my life. And they're like, ooh, based on your life? I'm sure that's how that went down. And he says, but it's going to take place here, and it's going to be, and they're like, and all the kids, spoke so eloquently and such had big vocabularies that kids have. Even if they go to a good school, they don't talk like that. They just don't. And they didn't go to the best. They went to a public school in a little rural kind of town. It's like, so
they were freshmen, weren't they? Freshmen in high school at the time.
Yeah, they did the thing that they did with 90210, where they made them like sophomores the first season. And then they kind of retconned it and made them sophomores the second season. So you look back, you're like, oh, they're freshmen. Okay. So yeah, like in 90210, they were juniors, and then the next year they were going into their junior year.
Got it.
Sense. What do they? I don't get it, but okay. I don't know what it was with shows in the 90s and the 80s where they kept retconning things in the middle of the series, like taking away the little sister, or they do this a lot too. They'll do this thing where they do a time jump for like babies that are born.
Oh yeah, Little Richie.
And the babies next season they're like 5 years old.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? They did that on Family Ties too.
Yeah.
I'm like, why did they do that? It was so weird. And they did it on Growing Pains, the little sister. She's all of a sudden huge. I'm like, how do these kids grow so fast? What are they feeding them? But the other people around them don't age. Like they're the same age.
I think the theory that we found, someone may have said this online, but babies are just not that interesting after a while. And I guess the network is just like, all right, we got to do something with this character. One season of a baby, you can't do anything with him, so let's grow him up. Let's give him some speaking lines. Like I think that was the idea behind. Yeah,
and like a show like a Full House, they could get away with it because they had kids of almost every age, so they didn't have to. They could focus on those kids and just kind of have the baby be like, oh, it's a cute little funny thing they say in the background, And eventually they kind of got to the point where Michelle's older now, and it's like we don't have anywhere to go with this, so let's just give her amnesia. She has to have and then we're done.
How old was she by the finale? She was like what? They did Garden
8 seasons.
Yeah, they did 8 seasons. Yeah, 8.
So she would have been 8. She was a newborn baby when they started, so she would have been 7 or 8 at least. So
and they ended with amnesia, right?
She fell off her horse, and so they told the writers, this might be the last episode, so just be prepared. So they wrote this whole thing where they wanted to keep it but they made like a 2-parter, I think, and she falls off her horse and she doesn't know who they are, and so the whole second half they're trying to remind her of who they are and who she is, and they do like a clip show flashback episode. And then she finally remembers by the end and everything's happy. And then you see the credits and they realize at the end, this is our last show. I guess they told them after they finished filming, oh, by the way, you're done. And they all went out there crying and bowing. and they found out that night, I think.
Wow.
It's horrible. I hate Hollywood when they do that stuff. Like, just tell them, man. Just stop playing with people, you know?
And to my understanding, Full House's ratings, I think, were still good. The show got canceled because it was too expensive. That's what I read. Like,
It was a full house.
Yeah.
They had too many people.
Yeah, which is probably like an uncommon reason to cancel a show. Usually it's low audience, but no, they were still attracting audience. I guess the network just didn't want to spend any money on it anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of like what Disney does. Disney does this thing where they'll have, especially Disney Channel, they'll like sign everybody up for like a 3-season deal.
It was like 65 episodes.
Right. And they'll sign them up and then they'll be like, we still want to keep going with the show, but let's reboot it with the same cast and call it something else. So you got like Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, and then you got like Sweet Life on Deck.
Yeah, right.
Zach and Cody, you know,
yeah.
They kept, and that's how they keep them at their same salaries and don't have to pay them anymore. And it's kind of an underhanded thing to do, but.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if Disney does this anymore, but they used to have like the 65 episode rule with all of their original shows. And I mean, part of it could be that they just didn't want to spend more money after a certain point, but I think also 65 episodes was like a good limit to like make some money off of syndication and reruns and such. So yeah, often with those early original shows, like say even Stevens or something, the ratings could still be good after 65 episodes. And it's like, nope, we're good. We're done. We've gotten everything we wanted. And now let's try to make money off of it with like reruns and DVDs and whatnot.
And now we can get these kids to be in another show and people will follow them there. And yeah. And the last thing, which is really funny, I just recorded a podcast last night where we went over High School Musical, the series, the first season of that, which I love. I love musical TV shows. I love TV shows, and but and they kind of did something I didn't expect. I was thinking, oh, they're going to do the 3-season thing, they'll reboot it, and well, they went to 4 seasons and they ended it, which was fine. I get it. And they didn't like what they did was like in season 3, they took away like half the cast and then added some new characters, and they went to summer camp. So they had a different thing going on. And then in the 4th season, they brought that cast back and then brought some of the summer camp characters back. And they kind of went all in because then they brought in actual High School Musical stars in the 4th season. So it was kind of neat how they do that. So I'm like, okay, if they, if the production team is smart enough, they can work around it, let everybody keep their jobs, let everybody do, and keep the story going without them having to like do these reboots in the middle of a show. I wish they would do that more often, actually. But
right. Wasn't Olivia Rodrigo in the High School Musical series?
Yes, she was in the first 3 seasons. So she did the 3-season deal, and because she was in another show, another Disney Channel show before that. I can't remember what it was. But she was in the really featured in seasons 1 and 2, and then just scattered throughout season 3 in her own storyline, because that's when her album came out and she had really taken off. So they just kind of had her do this storyline that was going to close out her story, her finding herself and what she's going to do with her life next, kind of thing. So yeah, I know too much. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, and that's good. That's why you have a fantastic podcast. Sorry, my cat was just crawling in the background. Anyway, go ahead, Andrew. What's up?
Okay, so you guys just kind of blow my mind because I have never watched Full House. So now I want to watch Full House. And now I want to watch High School Musical because this is like blowing my mind.
Oh, High School Musical, the series? Okay, let me tell you about this.
Yeah,
no, wait. Here we go. So High School Musical, the series. Have you seen High School Musical?
No, I haven't seen it.
You should watch High School Musical first. Yeah, it is a Disney-fied Grease. That is what it is.
Yeah.
It is Grease, the Disney version. There's no like greasers, but it's like conflicting factions of school, and there's the jock and the nerds, and it's whether or not these two are going to get together, kind of thing, right? And then you got High School Musical 2, which takes place in summer vacation, and it's just campy and fun, and it's arguably pretty much everybody's favorite, I think, as far as like the songs and whatnot. And High School Musical 3 was the one they literally put in the theater, like in the cinema. And it has the bigger budget, so the numbers look cooler and everything. It's not everybody's favorite story, but it closes out the whole thing. That's their senior years. I recommend watching those before you watch High School Musical, the musical, the series. Because High School Musical, the series, and the reason why it's called that is because it takes place, it's as if it's the real world, and it takes place in the same school that they filmed High School Musical in. And a theater teacher comes in, and she was like, I'm going to hold auditions for High School Musical, the musical. Because they have stage versions of High School Musical. And so she goes, I can't believe that nobody at this school has put on High School Musical, and then you're the school they filmed High School Musical in, right?
Right.
So, and it's done in this like it's like a half-hour comedy kind of with original songs and High School Musical songs. They make a lot of references to the movies. That's why I say you should watch those first. And it's also done kind of like in that docu style, like The Office or Parks and Rec, where like the kids kind of look at the camera or like say these little offhanded remarks. They don't even acknowledge that there's a documentary type of thing going on, but it's like just supposed to know. And little confessional moments, and it's coming of age. There's some symbolism and some like this character's kind of representing this character from actual High School Musical, that kind of stuff, and who's going to get that part, and it's interesting. And so I think you should watch it. You're going to get involved if you're okay with it. It's like a Disney-fied Glee meets The Office. It's kind of like that. The show is, and the movies are Grease, Disney-fied Grease. So
Yeah.
You have sold this to me. I'm going to watch them. I'm going to watch them.
You might like it. You might like it. I mean, honestly, I wish I was into High School Musical because I was in 7th grade at the time. So I was at that point where Disney Channel stuff was getting to be a little bit corny for me. The earlier Disney stuff I loved. I mean, your Even Stevens, your Smart House, like those kind of original movies and shows. But yeah, no, High School Musical was just that thing that my younger siblings and cousins loved, and I'm just like, okay, all right. And it gave us Zac Efron with Winning Chanel. So
exactly. And fun fact, he does not sing in High School Musical.
Of course he doesn't.
Somebody else lip syncs for him because Disney wanted a different voice for him, so he had to lip sync somebody else's voice.
Not surprised.
He only agreed to do the sequels if he got to sing.
Oh. So when we were talking about Scream and how it was a movie and then it became a TV series, made me think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Maybe a lot of people don't know this, but I believe there was a Buffy movie before the more well-known television series that we've come to love. Have you watched both? Do you have an opinion on which might be I mean, I guess maybe you think the TV show is better than the movie, but first of all, have you watched both?
Yes. Okay. So I was in grade school when the Buffy movie came out, and that my parents, or at least my dad, had signed up for that program where you could get like free preview tickets to see movies like a few weeks beforehand, and you answer questionnaires and stuff. It's kind of like when they used to advertise movies, and they're like, and you would always see those people outside the theater saying, "Go see it, it's awesome!" in the commercials.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that. We didn't get those interviews, but they would give away prizes and stuff sometimes. And I'm gonna tell you a little story first. So I went with my friends. I got the tickets, and I brought my friends with me. And they weren't really my friends. They were just kids that lived down the street, and I didn't have anybody around my age. So I was like, "Yeah, you want to go?" And so we were sitting down, and we sat there, and the biggest kid, he was like a year older than me. He sat in a chair, and then some reason we all had to move like a chair over to let somebody in. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, check under the third chair. And I happened to be in the third chair then, and I got a t-shirt, and it was a big purple heart with a pencil through it. And it said Buffy the Vampire Slayer in like varsity lettering. And on the back, it said vampires suck, Buffy slays. Wow. And yeah, and I got in trouble for wearing that at school because it said suck.
Of course, those days
it got taken from me, and I didn't have it anymore. That made me mad. Yeah. But I loved it because I had started my love for vampires. I love vampire fiction and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I loved that and everything. And then years later, it came out as a show. And I TV person, we had TV Guide every week, and I saw it was like, oh, this is interesting. And I was like, oh, this looks darker, and so I watched it the night it premiered. I was one of those people. I'm always one of those people. Like, I watch it the night it premieres. So, like, and people are like, I didn't see this show until way later. I'm like, I saw it that night. I was in it to win it.
Yeah.
So yeah, of course I love the show more because it's got much more of I love TV shows more usually because you had that character development. You had that ongoing storyline. You don't have to leave it right away, like an hour and a half, So I like to stay in that universe as long as possible.
So are you saying that the Buffy movie, was it more lighter and comical? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, it's a spoof. So
okay.
So here's the deal. Joss Whedon, who created the show, he also wrote the movie. And he wrote the movie to be more like the show. But the studio's like, no, we want this is funny. This sounds funny, then we want this to be funnier. So he had to make a more comical version. And it wasn't the version he wanted. Years later, somebody came to him and we want to produce a TV show. And he's like, can I do it the way I want to do it, the way I intended? So the show takes place after she is booted out of high school in LA and she moves to Sunnydale, California. So he kind of rewrote a little bit, but it's essentially supposed to be like a spinoff of the movie, right? She's smarter in it. She's not as airheaded. And in flashbacks, sometimes in the show, you see that she used to be airheaded before she became a Slayer, and then she became a Slayer, and she woke up, and she, just like in the movie, she kind of happens like that in the movie. But they even have like an origins comic that kind of tells the story of the movie, but in a darker way, so that it kind of leads into the show. So they have like a backstory. So that's why I love that kind of stuff. I love the reboot stuff. It's kind of like what they did with Interview with the Vampire. I don't know if you've watched the new series of Interview.
Is it? I have not watched it, and I'm afraid to invest my time. I love Interview with the Vampire.
Everybody who loves Interview with the Vampire loves this. Okay, they made some changes to it, which is great. They're good changes. They're changes that Anne Rice signed off on before she passed away. She and posthumously produces it, executive produces it, and her son now still, he's still involved in it. So what they did was they made Louis black. They don't start it in the 1700s. They started in the early 1900s. Louis and Claudia are both black, but they make it work. And what they do is, he's telling an interview to the same person that interviewed him in the 70s. And he's like, I'm recalling things differently now.
Sorry, let me cut in. What's the story of Interview with the Vampire? I've never seen any of it.
Oh,
I know. I'm so behind.
Okay, I'll forgive you because I didn't read the book originally, right? When the movie came out, I was like 13 or 14. That was Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, and that's where Kirsten Dunst came from. She became big from that. Because and I rewatched it recently after I watched the show, and I was like, yeah, she deserves all the recognition she got for being Claudia. She was awesome. Playing like an old woman in a little girl's body kind of thing. So it's the concept is there's this vampire. He's been around for centuries, at least in the book. He's been around for a few centuries, and he finds this guy. They call him the Boy in the first book, and then later on they give him a name. He's like, I'm going to tell you a story. And he's like, I want to tell you I'm a vampire. And the guy's like, yeah, I don't believe you. And then he like kind of does some crap, and you're like, oh crap, you're a vampire, right? And so he's like, I'm going to tell you the story of my life, or at least where my life ended and my new life began type of thing. So he goes through the whole thing. The book, I don't like Louis. I don't really like Louis and Brad Pitt either. He's too whiny to me. Like, whatever. But it's all about him meeting Lestat. Lestat is this like older vampire. He's very pompous. He's kind of into himself, and which is perfect for Tom Cruise, actually. If you look about it, Anne Rice did not want him, and then she saw him play. She's like, oh my God, he's Lestat. The guy they got to play him now is even better. Like everybody tells like, Tom Cruise, who? Like this guy's great. This guy grew up he read all the Vampire Chronicles. He looks like Lestat. He talks like Lestat. I mean, everything is just, he embodies that character. So it's all about him meeting Lestat. There's kind of a homoerotic thing going on. They don't outright say it in the book, but it's there. Like you hear it, like how much they love for each other, the way they longingly look at each other. And then they go, to Paris at one point, and he meets another vampire, and there's this like kind of romanticizing thing there. And they say it kind of, but not really. You got to think when the era this book was written too. It was the 70s, Anne Rice she was pushing the envelope at that time, so, and it goes a little deeper, I'm sure, as the books go on. I haven't read them all. And you're just like, yeah, yep, you're right. Mm-hmm, yep, I can see your face.
Oh, Andrew or me?
Andrew.
I love it so much, and now I'm excited to watch.
Oh, so okay, so the whole thing is he tells this whole story. I'm not going to tell you everything that happens, but he tells the story, and it's this kid in the 70s. So in the new show, it's essentially this, he's telling the same story, but it's like he went back to the same kid he talked to, who is now like a 50, 60-year-old man. And he's like, I need you. And it's almost like it's like a soft reboot, because the same stuff is happening. And what they're doing is, instead of calling it the Vampire Chronicles, they're going to call the whole series Interview with the Vampire, because they're going to continue to interview other vampires. And so the first 2 seasons are the first book, is Interview with the Vampire, the book. And within that, they give you scenes from other books in there, like, because he talks to other characters. The man who was the boy, who was the interviewer, Daniel Malloy. He talks to other ones at the same time, and he gets some backstory. And you're finding out different versions of things that happen. So there are some variations, but this is a lot more closely, even after I just read the book, after I finished season 2, I was like, I got to read the book now. It is so much more close to the source material than the Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise movie. As far as like the events that happen, it might not take place in the same era, but the same events that happen. And there's more, it's obvious. Louis calls himself a homosexual man in it. He says it outright. And Lestat is just kind of pan, and you see a lot more of Claudia. You see more from her side because she has a diary at one point they read, and it's really good. I really, really love it. I was like, man, I really love this. And I don't hate Louis as much as I hated him in the other versions. I was like, God, Louis, shut up. I like this Louis. He whines a little bit, but you understand it because it's like he can't remember things the way he's lived for so long. And there's other reasons you find out later on. But he's like, I don't understand why I can't remember this, and he's getting really frustrated. And you're like, you feel bad for him, It's really interesting. I think you'll really like it, Andrew. I really think you will. And the first season is now on Netflix. Season 1's on Netflix now. So if you get hooked on it and you decide you want to see season 2, you're going to have to subscribe to AMC Plus. And they've already kind of put out like a trailer for the Vampire Lestat season, because that's going to be season 3, where he becomes the rock star and he becomes, all that. So it's awesome.
I'm watching it, John. You're not going to hear from me for a month. I am watching it.
And it's not too long either. I think the first season's like 7 episodes and season 2's 8. It's not long.
All right. So if you are wondering why we're on a random 1-month hiatus, it's because Andrew is all going to be obsessed with Interview with the Vampire. Yeah. So the content that you dive into on your Rewatch Recap podcast, Dustin, I love it. So we've already talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You cover a season of that. You do cover a season of the Scream the TV series. Talk a little bit more about My So-Called Life, because I think what drew me in when you started recapping a season of that series is how it personally connected to you. Are you comfortable sharing that?
Yeah. So at the time it came out when I was 13 going on 14. So it was my 8th grade year of high school. And in 7th grade is when I realized I was gay. And I was like, oh my God, and I was so angsty. You're going through puberty, you become angsty anyway, right? Everything, you're so like, I don't know what I want in life and I don't know who I am. And, the emo years, right?
Right.
So I was going through that. And this show like hit me right here in the chest. Like, oh my God, every thought that I was having was being narrated by this teenage girl. And I think it doesn't have to be about a girl. There's a lot of girl perspective in it, but it's really just like what it's like to be human and growing up and like observing your parents and observing people in your neighborhood and your school. And it's so real. And it really touched me. And I ended up so the show got canceled, obviously, after season 1. Got canceled, 19 episodes, a random number of end the show on. And so MTV picked it up and it ran for like 2 years on MTV, like every day.
I didn't know that.
They just kept showing it every day. And so it was supposed to be like for 2 weeks. And then they're like, it got so popular on MTV that they kept it and they kept showing it over and over. And I ended up like recording it on VHS, and I still have the VHS tapes. And so it has all those old commercials from 94 and everything, and or 95 actually, but still. So the show, we went through every episode, all 19 episodes, and eventually, like mid 90s, somebody talked with the creator and head writer of the show, Wendy Holtzman, who also wrote the book for Wicked the musical. She wrote not the book Wicked's based on, but like the script book that is Wicked that everybody knows. She got with this writer and said, all right, this is what I plan to do with season 2, or at least a direction I was going to go. So this writer like basically wrote a season 2 in book form. So we did 20 episodes of My So-Called Life, and we did My So-Called Life Goes On, which was the continuation, essentially the sequel book, and whether or not we liked that. And I went through it because I have the copy. It's hard to find. It's like 200 and something bucks if you want to get it on eBay. And I still have it in like pristine condition. So I like to brag.
Yeah.
I still have it. Okay.
Now, I mean, you're always gonna have to talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So
Okay.
Remind me and remind the listener what My So-Called Life is about, because honestly, all I recall about the show I think it was middle school or high school. I was watching like a VH1 like best things of the '90s kind of documentary, like those things.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I love
back
the
in the day.
90s.
I
We
love
all
the
love the
90s.
90s.
Yeah. Yeah. And My So-Called Life was one of the shows that frequently came up as like one of the best things of the 90s. And I remember it was like, seen as taboo at the time. A gay character was on the show, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So just remind me of what the true story is of the show, because I only know of it because of its iconicness.
And the fact that it gave everybody Jared Leto,
That's it.
that's where Jared Leto got his big start, was on that. And Claire Danes, that's where Claire Danes got noticed. I don't know if you know who Claire Danes is, but she was Juliet, Romeo and Juliet. She's been in a lot of stuff, but Homeland, So it's about Claire Danes' character named Angela Chase, and she is just a teenage girl. She was literally the same age as her character. She wasn't playing down. She was 15 when they were filming it, and I think she was actually 13 when they filmed it. She was supposed to be 15, but it took a little while to get picked up, and by the time they started shooting, she was really 15. So that's why she looks a little younger in the pilot. But anyway, it's about her, and just like she feels like her life is just not going anywhere. It's the same thing every day. It's plain, it's blah, blah, And she meets a friend and who's like this wild child girl who has a tag along gay best friend. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to dye my hair. So she dyes her hair Crimson Glow. That's the name of it. It's like this bright red color.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell anybody she's going to do it. Her mom is just pissed off about it. Like, I can't believe you did this. Like, it's just ending her world. And then she's got a little sister that no one listens to. And she's got a father that may be cheating on her mom. And it's just, all this stuff is going on. And she's narrating it. Like, you hear her voice in every episode. They don't drop that, which I love, because they often do that in a show. You know what I mean? Like, they'll have somebody narrating and they just drop it for some point, But it's so groundbreaking because you have to watch it, really. It's, like I said, it's only 19 episodes. It's on Hulu. It's on several different places, but I know Hulu is the big place it's at. And not only is it like a snapshot of the 90s, but it doesn't age as far as like what happens in it. It's like this stuff still happens with kids. It still happens with adults. Like, so when we're recapping it, we're watching it and we're remembering what it was like to be a kid and all these feelings we got from it. But then we're going, wow, we really understand these adults now. And it's really interesting because you're like, I didn't before. You thought you did, but now you really do. And the things they talk about and how the adults' lives also mirror the kids' lives in every episode in a way. Like, they end up talking about the same thing. Like, there's a theme, but they don't mean it to be. I mean, the writers did, but you know what I mean? Like, as if the characters don't know that they're in the same theme of the week, It's very smart. It's the only way I can put it. And it brought us Wilson Cruz, who was the first queer queer actor playing a queer character on TV, or at least a queer teenager on TV. That was a big thing for it.
Right.
Just like Dawson's Creek had the first romantic gay kiss on TV. So there are some big things that people just forget about. Like, this happened, guys. Some really good storylines. Like, some of it was based off Wilson Cruz's life and how he got kicked out of his house and made to be homeless. That happens to the character at one point. There's some drug use and alcoholism. There's, crushing on the boy, and everybody knows what it's like to crush on somebody and how much you want them and how they're not noticing you. And you see where that goes. It's just so, and it sounds typical because, like I said, it was the jumpstart of those type of shows, but no one has ever been able to really match it in my eyes. No one has. It's so unique. It's so wonderful when you watch it. I used to call it my television therapy, because I could put on an episode. If I was feeling down about a particular thing in my life, I could put on a certain episode and just cry and watch it and be like, I feel seen. You know what I mean? So I highly recommend it. It's so good. I mean, it's so good. I can't stress that enough. It's my favorite show of all time. So,
oh God, I love that so much. I definitely have to watch that. You said Hulu?
I think it's on Hulu. Yeah. And I mean, if anywhere, I think it's on, you can probably buy it anywhere, but I know it's on Hulu for sure.
Okay. Got to put it on my watch list. Any questions, Andrew?
I'm definitely going to have to watch it. Is there anything, Dustin, that is from the 90s? Because as you've been going through your podcast experience of reviewing things from the 90s, that you really want to talk about that you haven't talked about yet?
Oh my God, there's so many. I have so much I want to. You hear me? I've been going off this whole time. Stop. I have so much I want to talk about, guys.
That's like, good.
It's like, this is what I was made for, to talk on podcasts. I really do.
Yeah.
My parents used to tell me, "Shut up, shut up." Like,
Oh.
I recently just started doing old Ghost Rider episodes. I don't know if you know what Ghost Rider is, but
I used to love Ghost Rider.
Yes. We started with, I like to do things in order. That's just who I am, because I don't want to miss a moment of it, you know? And people are like, well, what, are you going to do this episode? I'm like, that's like the last episode of the series. Maybe one day. We're not there yet. We did the first mystery, and that was a 5-part mystery. So, we're going to do the second mystery and then the third. And, you know, I want to introduce all the team and all the, you know, because they go through their own little things too. And I want to relive it all. I want to go back. You know, I love that. You know, it was a good golden era of TV for me. But as far as like, I don't know. I mean, I've touched on some Buffy. I didn't do a full season of Buffy because there's so many shows that cover Buffy. And I'm like, I don't want to be lost in that. I want to do some episodes, and I might go back and do more, but I do like 4. But I don't really know, actually. I mean, they haven't come up yet. I'm getting into that era where I'm like, you know, right now I'm in the early 2000s. We're doing Dead Like Me currently. And Dead Like Me is a great show, which we're discovering. I haven't really looked into it yet. We think that maybe some of the same writers were on My So-Called Life, because it's got a lot of the same setup, the same family dynamics. They got the narrator every, you know, week, and some of the same stuff comes up in it that we're like, hey, this is the exact same thing that happened in My So-Called Life, or this is the title of something that was in My So-Called Life. Like, I think these were supposed to be this is like the supernatural version of My So-Called Life. It's really good.
What's it about?
So Dead Like Me is about this girl named George, and she's very cynical. She's like 18 years old, and she's just kind of like, she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. And she goes to college for a little while, and she doesn't work out. She doesn't want to go. So she stays home, and her mom's like, you're not going to stay in my house and like live off my retirement fund. You know, you're going to get out and get a job and move out. Right. So she pushes her to go to this like temp job, and she goes to this temp job. And on her first day, she's on her lunch break, and some guy like stops her in the street and asks for the time and like talks to her for a minute. And then kind of like when she's walking away, he touches her back. And she's like, okay. She like thinks that's weird. And she walks into this plaza in the middle of like downtown Seattle, and she looks up and she sees something coming in the sky, and there was a space station that was re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, and parts of it broke off over West Coast. And she gets hit by the toilet seat from the space station and killed. And so
as you do.
Yeah, as you do. And so then she looks up and she's like, what's going on? And then somebody runs through her, and she's like, oh my God. And she realizes she's dead.
Yeah.
And then this guy walks up, and this girl, it's Mandy Patinkin. I don't know who Mandy Patinkin is.
Homeland.
Criminal Minds and Indigo Montoya, and Rebecca Gayheart, Noxzema girl. They both walk up, and they're like, hey, how you doing? We're Grim Reapers, and the guy that you were talking to just grabbed your soul before you got killed so that it wouldn't be harmed on impact, kind of thing. We do that as a courtesy, because if they don't, then you're going to look like you did when you got killed, so burned up and stuff. So he's like, yeah, so come with us, and we're going to let you say goodbye to your old life and stuff. And she learns basically that the guy that touched her, she was his last one. You get like a random number, and she was his last one. And since she was his last one, she has to take his place and become a Grim Reaper. Because he moved on, and now she's going to be a Grim Reaper. And what that entails is like, she gets to the public, she has a completely different face. We see her as she was, but the public sees her differently. So she can't really visit her family anymore, even though she lived in the same town, and her little sister's dealing with her death. And it's kind of a dark comedy, because there's a lot of silly things that happen, like silly deaths and silly because they all these Grim Reapers have these different like personalities. Jasmine Guy, she's one of them. She plays like a Grim Reaper that's also a meter maid. And she just has an attitude. She her introduction is literally, that's Roxy. She could kick your ass. That's her introduction. So it's like, perfect introduction.
I saw clips of that on your social media, and I was like, hey, Jasmine from a different world.
Yeah, and she's also in the Vampire Diaries. So yeah, she shows up. She's scattered throughout, but yeah, she's in it. She plays the grandmother of one of the characters. Which I was like, oh, really, Jasmine God's a grandmother now, no, that kind of thing. Because now I could be a grandfather. I don't like this.
What was her character's name in A Different World? I totally forgot.
Whitley?
Whitley. There you go. She was Whitley in A Different World. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Here's the thing. I barely watched A Different World. I wasn't the target audience. Let's just be real. I really wasn't. And so I watched a little bit of it. This is my mind. I will pick up people's names, character names, their storyline, and all that stuff without even having watched the show, and I will know it. It's just forever. It was always be in my mind. I will always know it. or I'll just know, oh yeah, they're on that show. I can't remember who they play, but they're on that show. And then if I find out who they play, that will be in my mind. I just how my brain works. I can't help it. It's hyper focus. It's hyper focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically, like in the trailer, she goes, and this is my so-called afterlife. That's what she says. And I went,
yeah. Reference.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole every episode's about at first she's trying to get out of reaping people because she thinks that she can save them, and they're like, you can't save them. This is what's going to happen. You have to do it,
Yeah.
So she starts coming to terms with her job, but at the same time, reapers still have to eat. They still have to sleep. They have to have a place to stay. So they all have to get jobs, like real jobs. So she basically has 2 jobs, and it's about her trying to find that work reap balance.
Yeah.
Essentially. She's basically learning she's having to engage in life more now that she's dead than when she was alive.
Right.
So that's basically what it's about. It's the same creator of Pushing Daisies and Wonderfalls. I don't know if you know that show. Is short-lived. It's interesting. And he's done a bunch of other stuff too. His name's Brian Fuller. He does a lot of like supernatural shows kind of, and man, he's really good. I was really surprised that all these shows he's created or had a hand in, especially recently. So I'm just blanking on them right now, which is random, but I normally have them at the forefront, but I had a few cups of drinks of wine. So
there you go. Love it. Anything else, Andrew?
Wine always makes it better. I'm actually a little jelly. I was going to pour a glass and did not. When it comes to doing this, John, I don't know how you feel about it. Dustin, I want to know how you feel as well. Going back through things from your childhood, TV shows, movies, it can spark memories. It can do things that you thought that were covered up in your past. It just uncovers them in an instant. As you're going through your journey, have you noticed that happening, or have you learned things about yourself through these memories that are uncovered?
John, you go first.
Oh God. Well, with Family Matters, I think certainly in the way the Winslow parents can act toward their children, specifically Carl toward Eddie, and the, what I would say, immigrant dad pressure that he puts on him, it's definitely remindant of the pressure that my own dad gave on me in terms of like grades and succeeding growing up and stuff like that. So, that past has been unlocked. And certainly Steve's obsession with Laura, just knowing that, I've certainly had that period in my life where I was obsessed with a girl to a point of, oh shit, somebody should call the authorities on me. I don't even describe the behavior I used to be up to, but
lives incel and really does.
Yeah.
As Steve goes, like, dude, stop.
So, Family Matters, to cut my story short, it's just been sort of a therapeutic awakening as well as an enjoyment from my childhood. What about you, Dustin?
I mean, I love revisiting old stuff, obviously. And what's funny is that, like I said, like with my so-called life, I could still kind of go, yeah, this really hits differently, but it still hits the same with every show that I've been watching, especially like Dead Like Me. I'm like, because Dead Like Me is all about grieving and death and accepting life and stuff. And literally, I decided to watch it, and I didn't even think about it, why I picked it. But I think unconsciously I picked it because I lost my mom last year. And I decided, let's watch this show. I remembered liking it, and I did watch it with my mom at the time. And now I'm seeing it from a completely different angle, and how much more serious it is than I originally thought. Even though it's kind of a dark comedy, I'm like, wow, this is really profound in the way it approaches things. And, and I'm like, oh, her narration is a lot like Angela from My So-Called Life. And wow, this is making me think about stuff, and even with stuff that's new, like I was bringing up High School Musical, the series, I was watching it because it's all about these kids coming together and being a part of like their school musical, and there's different factions of these kids. It's kind of like that Glee thing where you had all these different kids from different places, but it's not as campy. It's more heartfelt, and you're like how they kind of fight and they butt heads, but then at the end they really come together and really pull this show off. And you're just like, I remember doing that when I first got into my first school musical. And it was just like, there's some kids that did not like me because I got a big part and I had never been on a show before. And they've been doing the shows for years. And they're like, he got a solo. I can't believe that. They were talking about me like that. There's a character that does that in High School Musical series. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay, kid. It's gonna be all right, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of relate to that. And then you go, oh my God. And he was reluctant about it. He's like, I'm not gonna be like these people. And I was kind of like that too. But then by the end, we're striking the set and I'm going around everybody like, I'm gonna miss you. You know, I went up to this kid and I was like, I know we've had our differences, but I just want to say, I hope you do everything you want to in life. You know,
Oh my God.
I'm such a sentimental person. I get so emotional about stupid stuff. And so I really have a lot of empathy for like everybody. I've always been that way, but so I've always like little things like that still kind of get me. Anything that makes me relive the past and how simpler things were when you're discovering yourself or discovering little parts of life. And then you watch stuff now and you're just kind of jaded. I can't watch a lot of things now. A lot of the new stuff, I'm like, that feels like that's not for me. It's not for me. You know, it's for people who don't think. And I think too much. I'm like, you know, I'm just going like, that's not my bag, you know, but that's how I roll.
There you go.
That's all my questions I have for you. This has been very enlightening. I've got a list of things I have to watch because of you now.
This is what everybody says to me. They're like, okay, well, now I have a lot of stuff to watch. And I'm like, because I sold you on it. I know, but
yeah. I've got to watch Scream, the TV series. I've got to watch My So-Called Life. I got to rewatch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, I've seen a couple episodes back in the day, but I never caught up with it. So got to get back into that.
I will tell you with Buffy, first season is just episodic. It's very much, let's bring you into this world. Season 2, mid-season is where the show really takes off.
Okay.
So that's where everybody's like, oh my God, this storyline is where it gets good. And it gets really deep into the lore. And then it really starts picking up. And that's when it's really, really good. So I'll just get through the first season and a half because it's kind of episodic and some of it's silly. Some of it's like whatever, but you're learning things about the universe in that moment. So just, you know, push through it.
There you go. And you know what? I've heard about that for a lot of shows that like the first season, it might be a little bit of homework, but the second season is where things get going.
Oh, that's like The Magicians too. By the way, you should watch The Magicians. I don't know. Have you seen The Magicians, Andrew?
I love The Magicians. The Magicians is really good. You would like it, John.
It's the same thing. Season 1, it's kind of like, okay, it's good, but it really picks up in season 2 and you're like, wow, like they're balls to the wall craziness happens, you know?
Is it just simply about magicians or is it more?
There's a video on my personal TikTok, but it's also on the Rewatch Recap Instagram, and it says The Magicians. It's in blue. You need to watch it. But what I say in it is, it's emo Harry Potter goes to Hogwarts University and finds the doorway to Narnia.
Wow,
and there's a lot of sex and drugs in it too.
Yes,
because it's made for adults. So I read the books, The Magician's books. There's a trilogy of books, and the show is inspired by. Anybody that's read the books and seen the show always says the show is 10 times better. And it is because of the way the character development and the books are more focused on one character really. And they have the other characters there, but the show focuses on everybody. It's done really, really well. I really highly recommend it. That's all on Netflix. There's 5 seasons of it. So
I love that. All right. Well, Dustin, before we let you go, how can people find the Rewatch Recap? How can they keep in touch with you, listen to the podcast, all that good stuff? Plug away.
Okay. I haven't put it on YouTube yet, but which I might do eventually, but it is available pretty much wherever you can listen to podcasts. We literally just recorded our 100th recap.
Oh, congrats.
That's coming up. It's coming up. It's mid Dead Like Me, but it's in the middle. And you can find us on socials at the Rewatch Recap on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
There you go. Any advice for guys like us who are still fairly new in this recap process as you've gotten into your 100th recap?
Try to stay on track. When you're writing up your recaps, or if you're writing any of that, keep the same amount of pages. Write your notes. Like literally, that's how I write my stuff. Like, this is what happened, and in parentheses, this is what I'm thinking. And then I can elaborate from there. But that's my big takeaway. Like, make sure you stay on track, because otherwise you sidetrack too much and go on tangents. It's hard not to, but
I know.
Stay on track.
Especially when those childhood memories come up.
Oh, exactly. Well, yeah, you can do it, and you might want to choose what you want to keep in there, but, for the most part.
Yeah. I love that. Well, hey, Dustin, thank you so much for talking with us. Have a great night, and best of luck with the continuation of the podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm like, great to meet you guys.
Awesome. Yeah.
Me too.
Awesome. We'll keep in touch, Dustin. We'll let you know when this comes out.
All right, great. Have a good
All right. Take care.
All right, you two have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. That was awesome. I love him.
He's awesome. Oh man, I've got to watch so many shows now.
Yeah. Y'all are just like throwing shows my way that I've never even heard of. The Magicians and the Interview with the Vampire. And it's like, oh my God, I already have like 50 million things on my watch list.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now, The Magicians, sex, drugs, and magic. It is so good.
I mean, you can't go better than that. And when you have that combination, it's hard not to take a try at that. But yeah, the rewatch recap, like Dustin said, find it wherever you get your podcast. It was a fantastic conversation. And for you, if you like the delicious recap, find us wherever you get your podcasts. Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Reddit. Find us at Delicious Recap. We're at YouTube at The Delicious Recap. And Patreon, please. For $5 a month, you get that early episode access. You get the behind-the-scenes conversation. Sins. I can't do plural right now. It's been a long day, Andrew. Behind-the-scenes conversations. Patreon.com/delicious recap. Patreon.com/delicious recap. And feel free to email us if you want to bother us in a good way. thedeliciousrecap@gmail.com.
Yes, send us unsolicited TV show clips. That is what we want to see.
Better than unsolicited penises.
See, damn it, you gave them the idea now.
Only if it's from a TV show. If it happens to be within a clip of a TV show, that's fine. But if it's just
Yes.
look at my delicious penis. Like I don't want. We don't want any of that. We're good. We're good.
Don't you dare send the clip from Power with 50 Cent. It's not good. Okay? Don't send that to us.
I don't know what you're talking about. Does 50 Cent show his penis in Power?
Accidentally, he shows his penis on camera, and there was this whole thing about it. He was like, oh, I didn't want my penis shown on camera. And it's like, well, your whole penis was there. We all saw it. We all saw it. Okay? So, but don't send it to us. That one's not good. It's a boring one.
You're saying on record that 50 Cent has a boring penis.
Yeah, the scene is boring. The penis is boring. It's just boring.
Okay. Boring, excited penises. We don't want them. Just keep it to yourself. We have penises ourselves. We know what they look like. It's okay. Just keep it to yourself.
Yes, just send us show clips. I love a good show clip.
There you go. Wonderful. All right, cool. Andrew, how can people follow you?
You can follow me on TikTok at Ajay Vandertunt. That is my only social that I'm actively participating on. And to find me there, just Vandertunt. My last name is Vandertunt.
Love it. Sign us off in a way that describes how we loved Dustin so much in this episode.
I loved all the shows Dustin has given us to try. Dead Like Me, I have to watch now because it sounds delicious. Like that rings for me.
Do you love TV shows? We do too. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff.
And I'm Anna, and we're the hosts of We Judge a Show by Its Pilot, a podcast hosted by us, a married couple with an endless love for TV.
Whether you're searching for a new favorite series or ready to revisit an old classic, we're here to guide you through an infinite world of TV shows.
Each episode, we watch and discuss the pilot for shows, while also sharing personal stories that parallel the storyline.
So if you're tired of endlessly scrolling and not sure what to watch next, tune in and let us do the searching for you.
We Judge a Show by Its Pilot. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Your new favorite show is just one click away.
If you're a 90s kid that loved Nickelodeon, then Splat Attack Podcast is the show for you. On our show, we cover all kinds of different aspects of Nickelodeon, as well as branching outside of Nickelodeon. We compare episodes, we have versus battles, we have top fives, but we also have a lot of guests from Nickelodeon. We've had writers, producers, directors, actors. We've had game show contestants. We've had kids who won sweepstakes. We have all kinds of content that's a lot of fun if you want a good deep dive into nostalgia that makes you happy. So join us over at Splat Attack Podcast. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you find your podcast needs.